And away we go. Episode 1323 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. This is the 9-year anniversary of the peak of the Washington Wizards franchise since it last advanced past the second round of the NBA playoffs. May 12th, 2017, a 92-91 win over the Boston Celtics at Capital One Arena in Game 6 of an Eastern Conference semifinal series, forcing a Game 7 that our Wizards did lose. But this Game 6 win is the peak of the Washington Bullets / Washington Wizards since the franchise last advanced past the second round of the NBA playoffs. The Bullets / Wizards have not advanced past the second round of the NBA playoffs since 1979 and have not won at least 50 games in a regular season since the 1978-1979 regular season. One of the multiple heroes for the Wizards in that Game 6 win was John Wall. He connected on a game-winning three with 3.5 seconds left in the fourth quarter, made the shot over Avery Bradley, who was the Celtics' best defender. Here was the call on ESPN from Mark Jones and Hubie Brown.
With Morris, Wall, Beal, and Gortat. Porter can't find anybody. He gives it to Wall. Working against Bradley for three. John Wall!
Hold on.
What a shot!
Now you talk about a pressure shot. That was it. Because they had nothing. They were trying to bring Bradley Beal from the left side of the floor.
Yeah, man, John Wall, greatest shot of his career, and here we are 9 years later, and it was Wall who was at the McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago on Sunday afternoon, representing the Wizards at the reveal of the results of a 2026 NBA Draft Lottery that the Wizards won. Coming up on the show, a conversation with Greg Finberg, staff editor for Bullets Forever and the host of the Wizards podcast. We will discuss what the Wizards winning the draft lottery means for the rebuild, means for the future of Anthony Davis with the team, and means for the future of Brian Keefe as the team's head coach. And we will go in depth on what the Wizards should do with that number one overall pick in terms of who the team should take and whether the team should trade the pick. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Before we talk to Greg Finberg, we next segment have another excellent guest, Tyler Grisham. He is Clemson's offensive pass game coordinator, receivers coach, and recruiting coordinator. He is going to tell us all about receiver Antonio Williams, who the Washington Commanders took in the third round of the 2026 NFL Draft out of Clemson. A lot of excitement about Antonio Williams. Get ready for that excitement to be heightened off what Coach Grisham has to say. And Coach Grisham is going to provide us with some terrific story time from his time as an NFL receiver. So not one but two guests on this installment of the podcast. Next segment, Tyler Grisham. The following segment, Greg Finberg. And also on the show, I'll talk Baltimore Orioles. The O's rallied past the New York Yankees for a 3-2 win at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Monday evening in a game in which the O's overcame a 2-0 seventh-inning deficit by scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the seventh. Before we get to feedback, a roster move by the Washington Commanders. They on Monday morning announced having re-signed unrestricted free agent cornerback Antonio Hamilton Sr. The 2026 season would be his age 33 season. He's older than you may think. Entered the NFL in May 2016 via signing with the Oakland Raiders as an undrafted free agent at a South Carolina State. Washington this past August 11th signed him as an unrestricted free agent. The team on August 26th announced having released him in the cut down to 53, but then on August 27th announced having signed him to the practice squad, and Washington on October 1st announced having signed him from the practice squad to the active roster. He was especially good in the 29-21 win at the New York Giants this past December 14th, played on 82% of Washington's defensive snaps, registered an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 81.6, and he this past regular season was a contributor on special teams. I do remain concerned about Washington at corner. Washington's cornerback group now is as follows: Trey Amos, Mikey Sainristil, Amik Robertson, Akello Witherspoon, Antonio Hamilton Sr., Trey Hawkins III, Darius Rush, Carlin Vigors, and Fred Davis II. Also, Washington on Monday morning announced jersey numbers for various unrestricted free agent acquisitions this offseason. Among the numbers was the number 54 for linebacker Leo Chanel. And that stands out because 54 was linebacker Bobby Wagner's number during his 2 seasons with Washington, 2024 and 2025. So this would seem to be another sign that the team is not re-signing Wagner, who does remain an unrestricted free agent. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. And if you on Apple Podcasts give the podcast a 5-star rating, I on the podcast will read whatever you write in writing a review of the podcast. And what you write can be a sports take. You don't just have to write about the podcast. From Old Red Wolves fan on Apple Podcasts writes Old Red Wolves fan, hands down the best Skins podcast. This is the only podcast I actually listen to every day. Been listening since intern Al days. He is the best around. Well, thank you very much for that, Old Red Wolves fan. Long live the Red Wolves. Remember the clamoring for the Washington football team to become the Washington Red Wolves. Lots of feedback on the Wizards winning the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery. Email from Michael King writes, Mike, the Wiz won the lottery. Didn't expect that. Thank you for that, Mike. Nobody who has followed this team expected that, given the extent to which the team has been done dirty by the NBA Draft Lottery. And, technically speaking, the Wizards winning this lottery is not an instance of them moving up via a lottery. They, in the 2025-2026 regular season, went an NBA worst 17-65. The Wizards, technically speaking, neither moved up nor moved down via the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery. And so your updated all-time results for the Washington Bullets / Washington Wizards in NBA Draft Lottery, so the first of which was in 1985. The team has participated in the NBA Draft Lottery 26 times. The team has received a pick better than the team's pre-lottery position just 3 times. The team has received a pick worse than the team's pre-lottery position 11 times, and the team has neither moved up nor moved down 12 times. So the team's all-time record, if you will, in NBA draft lotteries is 3, 11, and 12. Email from Rick Proctor writes, Rick, hi Al, I trust all is well. Oh, happy days, Mother's Day madness, whiz win, whiz win, whiz win, whiz win. The damn Washington Wizards. You might have to retire the Stephen A. clip, Al. Hail to the Wizards, hail victory, whiz on the warpath, magic for old DC. As a man who remembers the NBA championship with the Big E, Bobby D, and Wes, I can confidently say, there's a gleam, men. There's a gleam. AJ all the way. Let's roll. Thank you for the email, Rick. I'm with you. I, as of now, do want the Wizards to take AJ DeBonsa out of BYU if the Wizards stick and pick at 1. More on that in our conversation with Greg Finberg. Email from Joel Charney writes, Joel, the damn Washington Wizards got the number 1 pick in the draft. Congratulations. Key question, are we going to get blanket, full-on, commander-style coverage of the draft from now until June 23rd? Your loyal listeners want to know. Thank you for the email, Joel. I love the references to one of the all-time great sound bites on this show. ESPN Stephen A. Smith saying, quote, the damn Washington Wizards, end quote.
The damn Washington Wizards.
Yes, thank you, Stephen A. But the answer to Joel's question is, heck yeah. We will be doing a lot of Wizards talk on this podcast in the lead up to the draft and beyond. As never forget, this is the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. And coming up later in the show is one of my favorite people with whom to talk Wizards, Greg Finberg. And speaking of my favorites, my new favorite shorts are from Quince. I just got new shorts from Quince, sand dune colored cotton chino drawstring shorts. They are outstanding, extremely comfortable, and yet nice enough to wear out to eat or to a family gathering. Ordering the shorts took minutes, and I right away was able to figure out the right size. You see, Quince makes ordering clothes easy. Look good and feel good with Quince. Quince has all of your wardrobe staples for spring. Think 100% European linen shorts and shirts from just $34. Everything is priced at 50 to 80% less than what you'd find with similar brands. How? Well, Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and make getting dressed easy. Refresh your everyday with luxury that you'll actually use. Go to quince.com/Galdi for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Galdi. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Galdi. 2026 Washington Commanders rookie minicamp took place this past Friday through Sunday. The only day of the rookie minicamp that was open to reporters was Friday. Various players did post-practice sessions with reporters on Friday afternoon. Among those players, receiver Antonio Williams, who Washington took in the third round of the 2026 NFL Draft out of Clemson. We, during Williams' post-practice press conference on Friday afternoon, had this exchange.
Did you learn your pass catching skills?
My mom. No, I'm joking. I mean, I had a lot of great coaches growing up. Jason Barnes, my high school receiver coach, really taught me the art of receiver. I didn't play receiver until I got to high school, so I give a lot of credit to him for sure. And then Coach Grisham at Clemson just really helped develop me.
All right, and the Coach Grisham, to whom Antonio Williams referred, is joining us now. It is a pleasure to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast Clemson offensive pass game coordinator, receivers coach, and recruiting coordinator Tyler Grisham. He has been Clemson's full-time receivers coach since February 2020. He was a receiver for Clemson for the 2005 through 2008 seasons, and he spent time in the NFL, was with the Pittsburgh Steelers as an undrafted free agent in 2009, appearing in 4 games in the 2009 regular season. He was on the Steelers practice squad in the 2010 and 2011 seasons. He was on the Denver Broncos practice squad in the 2012 season. You can follow Coach Grisham on X at Coach_Grisham. Hey, Coach, how are you?
Al, man, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to talk about Antonio, one of my favorite dudes I've coached and been around at Clemson, and man, thrilled that you'll have a chance to welcome him home, his new home, and hopefully have some great success for the franchise, man. So looking forward to seeing how his career goes, man.
Yeah, we as Washington fans are excited about Antonio Williams. He played college football for 4 seasons, all for Clemson, 2022 through 2025. So you had him for 4 years. What comes to mind when you think about Williams?
Man, he just is such a, I mean, first word that came to my mind just now was baller. All right. He is just a straight up baller. He is a guy that loves football. He's a very consistent guy. I mean, the thing I love most about him, and as a coach, right, someone that's leading him, he's a guy that is so consistent with who he is. Like every day, you're not going to have to worry about which Antonio is going to show up today, right? Like that's not him. He's going to show up and be so consistent with his energy, his effort, his commitment, his attentiveness in meetings, his work ethic in practice. He's a process-oriented guy. I mean, I think he really did in college, from his freshman to heading into his second year with us, ended up having an injury, and I think he learned pretty quick. All right, I gotta treat myself like a pro, and he did so, and really took steps to become more of a pro before he became a pro, and so. Man, it just, I told all the scouts, I said, listen, this is the safest pick you can have. I mean, you know what you're getting in him. You're not going to have to worry about him showing up and all of a sudden he switches up on you and changes. He's just going to keep getting better and be a staple for the team.
Washington General Manager Adam Peters, during his press conference on the night on which the Commanders drafted Antonio Williams, April 24th, called him, quote, an NFL route runner, end quote. What can you tell us about the route running of Williams?
Yeah, that's one of his greatest attributes, man. Is that, in fact, he's a great route runner. He understands just how to manipulate defenders. That's what I would say. He knows how to get open. He knows he has a plan. Like, he's really smart and understands the concept, spacing, where he needs to be, when he needs to be there. But man, he also reacts. Like, he's not going to sit in a meeting and you draw a play on the board and he sees the line and says, okay, I can do that. No, he knows how he can manipulate his route to win, right? And whether that's zone or man, he reacts really quickly, and yeah, he's just efficient with his movement. I mean, he's a guy that can play outside as well, which we'll probably talk about here in a little bit. But like, he knows all the route tree, slot and outside, and can use his length to help him. And so, man, yeah, he's phenomenal at route running.
Yeah, so Antonio Williams at Clemson played extensively as both a slot receiver and a wide receiver. Do you like him better in one role versus the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think the slot, anybody, right? They love the slot because you're not going to see as much heavy press, and so when you give Antonio space, right, that's not your friend if you're a defender. Like you better scoot up and try to collision him early, because again, with his ability to influence, defenders and sell, right? That's the art of route running, is you're trying to lie. You're trying to sell something other than what you're eventually trying to finish and end up with. But man, yeah, he's elite in the slot, and that's probably where he's going to primarily play. He's a slot that has ability to go outside, and so we had a game against Virginia Tech a couple years ago, and we were struggling a little bit, just trying to get some splash plays and finishing downfield, and had a freshman that was out there and outside. And I was like, oh, listen, we got to put Antonio out there and just let's call a couple plays that would allow him to finish, at least finish downfield, right? And we did. We put him out and ended up converting on a quick game and threw a jump ball to him, and he went up and over a guy that had some great length at corner and came down with the ball, and it was a huge play for us and gave us momentum to end up having a great drive that ended in a touchdown. And so, he can do that, right? He can win versus lone corners, but is going to most likely, excel more in the slot at the next level.
Antonio Williams is athletic, scored an 8.58 out of a possible 10 in Kentley Platty's relative athletic score metric. Williams at the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine registered a 40-yard dash time of 4.41 seconds. What stands out to you about Williams in terms of his athleticism?
Yeah, I mean, you say athlete, he just does so many things well. It's kind of funny because even some of his teammates, we give him a hard time, and they're like, oh, you're a 4.5 guy, you're a 4.5 guy, and that's as if that's slow. But for a guy of his stature, I knew he would run 4.4, and frankly, I mean, we thought he might hit 4.3, high 4.3s at the combine. It wasn't too far off, but man, he has such great acceleration and burst. That's what I would say, which, in the slot, in football in general, but in the slot, that 0 to 60 is so important. And he has that, and I think that's what helps his separation, right? I mean, he's able to get in and out of breaks really quickly. His quickness is great, but man, that first and second step, one, on the snap, getting off the ball, but also getting in and out of his breaks is what's going to create the separation for him. But again, like talking about being able to play outside, he plays bigger than he is. And you look at him walking around off the field or whatever, like the scouts, like he's not the most physically imposing guy, but there's some guys that are 6'2 plus that don't have quite the catch radius because they don't know how to extend fully and make a play. Right? They have a harder time literally not bending their elbows to make a catch when they have somebody draped over them. And so Antonio has long arms, he's got great length, but he also uses that. So if somebody happens to be draped over him and is raking at his arm and trying to, affect the catch, man, he has great ability to still finish because of one, he is strong, but also he uses his length well.
That's a great point. So Antonio Williams at the Combine measured as being 5'11 and half of an inch and 187 pounds. But to what you're saying, size for a receiver isn't so much about the literal numbers as it is about how the receiver uses his size.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing for us. We're recruiting, right? And we're trying to find a bigger body outside guy that can go in and make it an 80-20 ball instead of a 50-50 ball. But you've got some dudes that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", but they go up for a jump ball and they have their I don't know if your guests listening, they're not going to be able to see me right now, unfortunately, but they're going up with their thumbs out and elbows bent, and they're not, like a rebound. They're not going up for it as if it's a rebound. And it frustrates you, and you're like, golly, give me a couple of those inches and I'll make the most of it, my man, because they're just not, they're not capitalizing on God-given size. And so, yeah, Antonio, again, he plays like he is a 6'1" guy, that can finish downfield.
How would you rate the hands of Antonio Williams?
Elite. I mean, if it's a 0 to 10, I mean, he's a 9 or 10. I mean, that's that's what he does well, right? He's going to make contested plays. He's going to finish downfield. Very rare to see a drop out of him. And he had and listen, I'm his receivers coach, so I can think back on when he had drops, and I'm pissed off even now talking about it. Yeah, it happens, but like I think those are more, again, finish it with your eyes, right? You had plenty of speed to have some great yak. You turn those eyes too early, and that's when he's had a couple drops. But like, nah, man, he's a ball guy.
We're getting great insight on Washington Commanders receiver Antonio Williams as we speak with Clemson offensive pass game coordinator, receivers coach, and recruiting coordinator Tyler Grisham. Washington in January promoted assistant quarterbacks coach David Blau to offensive coordinator. The team is QB1 Jaden Daniels going into his third NFL season. What do you think about the fit for Antonio Williams in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I was thrilled to hear that he was drafted there. Would he have liked to go on earlier? Yeah, who wouldn't, right? But like, and we thought he might, but man, he's thrilled. Really, he's thrilled because he understands that, man, this is a great opportunity for him. He's got a Q that can get the ball to him, a great offensive mind. I mean, sometimes we can, as offensive coaches, you can get so caught up in scheme and how sexy a play can look, and you're spending so much time on that when you have playmakers, right? So like, yeah, you want to have creativity and create mismatches, but how can you get your playmakers the ball? And it really is a simple game. And so, I mean, you got a weapon like Antonio where, I mean, you can move him around, you can put him in the backfield. He can throw touchdowns. All right. Like he can, he did for us. I mean, and that's honestly, that's something I've joked around with some of my recruits. I'm like, hey, I'll show them film of Antonio. I'm like, hey man, I need a guy that can do this, and so, man, I think you can be creative with Antonio, but also too, like, he's a guy that can help block. I mean, you can motion him in and go pick up a nickel or a safety, and he's willing to do that because he's got some dog to him. He's not a receiver that's afraid to block, and mix it up, and he's a competitor. So, man, he's going to fit well in whatever scheme, but man, it seems like this is going to be a great fit for him offensively.
You brought up the Virginia Tech game. Are there any other games that come to mind as especially impressive games for Antonio Williams while playing for Clemson?
Good question. Man, yeah. Man, put me on the spot. Let me think here. NC State. If you go back to 2024, NC State, they had our number the year before. We had a bye week leading into that week, and we were freaking fired up to host them at home. And he had a couple of plays where he was wide open, had an overthrow, ball went the other direction, and he killed. And these are things that aren't going to show up in the stat book, but like, just man, he was open and he was making dudes look silly out there, and he did. He had a really nice. I wouldn't call it a double move, but it was almost like a shallow, kind of selling the shallow into a wheel. That really was not wasn't the best coverage to call that play against. But man, found a way to get open and make a play, and Cade threw it up to him for a touchdown. I mean, so it's just. But here's what's cool about that game: he did play inside and outside. And whenever you have a corner playing off man, if they're going to play a catch technique where they're not going to lose much ground, they're going to try to mirror you and then try to collision you. We were prepared for that, knowing that's how they played at times with their off man. And oh man, it was really cool to see him step on the defender's toes, using his speed to take the air out of the defender, and also making that second level move to get open and not even get touched, not even a hand touch them. I mean, it was really impressive. So, I mean, as a coach, looking at a skill set and taking practice to the game, and man, it was a mastercraft of wide out play that game. But man, there's so many others that come to mind. But yeah, that's one in particular.
If I could ask you about you, you have one career NFL regular season reception, but it was a big reception. December 27th, 2009, a 23-20 Steelers home win over the arch rival Baltimore Ravens with the game tied at 20 in the fourth quarter. You had a 14-yard reception on a 3rd and 3. and the drive resulted in a 38-yard field goal by kicker Jeff Reed with 5:25 left in the fourth quarter to give the Steelers a 23-20 lead, and the Steelers won the game 23-20. If you're going to have one career NFL regular season reception, that's a pretty good one to have.
Oh man, appreciate you bringing that up, and also it's very humbling, right? It's that's why I'm coaching. That's why I'm not playing and didn't have a long career. I'll say this, man, really funny story. I was undrafted to Pittsburgh and was a newlywed. Met my wife at Clemson. Go up to Pittsburgh. I won't go through all that, man. What an amazing, really wild ride to make the team as a practice squad player, and ended up backing up Hines Ward. What a great player he was, of course, and on a great roster, and so I played the last 4 games of the regular season. But really quickly, I'll share this. They come up to me and they're like, "Hey, you ready? You ready to go? Like, the playbook, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." And of course I'm cramming, I'm getting ready, and catching up on some of the things, because as a practice squad player, you don't quite have all the installs and all that. But I was getting ready to go, and so ended up my first game activated was against Cleveland. It was like negative 14 degrees with the wind chill, and I didn't get one rep, and I'm freezing my tail off on the sideline just watching the game. Ended up playing against the Ravens in this particular game you referenced, and they throw me in. Hines had a hamstring issue. They throw me in. I make the play, first down. I get up, I signal first. It was a really cool moment. My family drove up from Alabama to watch that. They saw that live. Well, here's what's funny. So that same drive, we're moving down the field, and this is not going to be written in the paper, right? But I ended up having, it was a third and long play, and I'm running an underneath route, and literally before the play began, I look and I knew where I was heading, and there's Ray Lewis sitting in the middle of the field. I'm like, this is pretty awesome. This is sick. Well, I run an under route, and I'm trying to catch this thing and get upfield. Well, guess what I did? I turned my eyes away and I drop it. Ball right in the chest, 4-yard drag, whatever. And it was sickening. Well, we kicked the field goal. We go up. We win the game, I guess, because of that. But it was funny is I got my gloves. I kept my gloves, and I wrote on them the date and first catch. I wrote them on the gloves. First catch. Well, it turned out to be my only catch ever in my NFL career. So I have those in my office, and I use that as a way to show the guys. NFL also stands for not for long, right? And man, it's it's humbling for me, but man, what a fun experience and start to my career, and that's why I'm coaching, probably because of that drop. But but it was a fun ride.
So interesting to hear all of that. Also, you were on the Broncos practice squad in the 2012 season, which was Peyton Manning's first season with the Broncos. What was it like being a teammate of one of the greatest quarterbacks ever?
Yeah, so that's another God thing too, man. I grew up a Tennessee fan. I was born in Tennessee. I've got family in Tennessee. Grew up watching Peyton, cheering for T. Martin when they won the national championship in '98, and so man. Was mesmerized by that guy. I have an autograph to Tyler, Peyton Manning, I've had that, and so that's still in my office at home. And so being around him was awesome. That was really good for my development. He cussed me out because I ran my route too short one time. So that was great. But man, just, being around guys like him and some of the great receivers we had in Pittsburgh, especially, man, it was unbelievable to be around those guys. And my time got cut short in Denver because of a patella tendon. Didn't tear it completely, but partially torn patella, which ended up actually being a blessing, and got my third credited season because of some games that were accredited to me. But which got me retirement and pension, all that stuff, man. Who would have thought? But man, it was that was really amazing to be around Peyton and see his professionalism and just his the expertise and knowledge of the game. So it helped me become a better coach, I believe.
Tyler Grisham, Clemson offensive pass game coordinator, receivers coach, and recruiting coordinator, and a former NFL receiver. Coach, thank you. All the best.
Al, thanks so much, man. Appreciate you.
All right, good stuff from Tyler Grisham. Good story time from Tyler Grisham. And always good stuff from Catering by Uptown. Whatever big event that you're planning, a wedding, a party, whatever, consider using a terrific sponsor of this podcast, Catering by Uptown. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Washington Commanders fans. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. And Catering by Uptown's specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you could check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. It's funny how things work out. A big-time theme for the Washington Wizards in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season, of course, was them in their third season of tanking, making sure to not lose their reported top 8 protected pick in the 2026 NBA draft. Well, the Wizards finished an NBA worst 17-65, not only kept the pick, but got the number 1 overall pick, marking the first time under the current lottery rules that the team with the worst record in the regular season got the number 1 overall pick. The NBA, starting with the 2019 NBA draft lottery, implemented a system in which the teams with the 3 worst records for the regular season would share the same chance of receiving the number 1 overall pick. That had resulted in the team with the worst record having fallen in every NBA draft lottery from 2019 through 2025. We still are beaming off the glorious news of Sunday afternoon, the reveal of the Wizards having won the 2026 NBA draft lottery, and a man who, like me, is a big Wizards fan and someone who covers and talks about the team is a man who joins me now. I am pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast, Greg Finberg, staff editor for Bullets Forever and the host of the Wizards podcast. You could follow Greg on X at Greg Finberg. Greg puts out a lot of great content on the Wizards. Hey, Greg, how are you?
I'm very happy to be here talking with you, Al. I remember last year, people were saying this was a cursed organization because they fell yet again. They fell to 6. It's so great to see the difference that a year can make between a team doing the exact same thing. They tanked last year. They tanked this year. The only difference is they actually got some luck. Maybe some deserved luck at that for a team that has just been asking for years to get this franchise star, to get the top pick in a draft that actually matters, with the top pick. And this is one of them. Bobby Marks of ESPN called it the deepest class in 30 years. It's a tremendous class. And there's 2 guys at the top that we'll be talking about for the next month or two that can, drastically change how an organization looks and talks about itself and operates for 15 to 20 years. And the Wizards dictate that draft. They're at the top. They're on the clock. Just really great news from winning the lottery.
We last spoke on this podcast on episode 1260, which came out this past February 13th, and I asked you if it was correct to say that the Wizards rebuild was working. Not that it had worked, because there was still and is still a lot to be determined, but whether the rebuild was working, was in the process of working. And I then thought that the answer was yes. I know that you agreed with me back then. You think about that question right now, is the Wizards rebuild working? I mean, is there any doubt now about the answer to that question being yes?
Zero doubt. And we were on it from the beginning. And I remember last year when they got 6, I tried to tell fans that were calling the rebuild a bad thing and saying they shouldn't have tanked because they got 6, that the process was perfectly fine. They were developing talent and they were tanking and they weren't winning a lot of games, but that was by design. They just didn't get lucky, while some teams like Dallas and San Antonio got lucky again. But they kept at it, right? They didn't change course. They didn't say, hey, we got unlucky. Let's blow everything up and try something new. They knew the results were going to come, but the process was what was working. And this year in February, we both said the process is working. And the process was working regardless of whether they got 5 this year or whether they got 1. But it's nice to see that payoff, right? Because this was pinned as a playoff play-in team next year, despite the pick that they were going to get. Because they made smart moves for AD and Trae Young to get them for cheap. They developed talent with Alex Sarr, Trey Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly. Will Riley look like one of the best rookies at the end of the season. Keyshawn George to start the season looked like one of the best second-year players. So they have this unreal collection of young talent. They got 2 former All-Stars for pretty cheap. And so wherever this pick was going to go, I even said before the lottery, I would think that this rebuild worked. I would think that the tank was worth it. I would think that the process and how they went through everything was the way it was supposed to go, right? And now that they get one, you'll have all of the fans that are going to say, oh, of course it worked. And they're going to come on here after and say, yeah, of course they should have lost those games, or they shouldn't have played Trey Johnson pretty much every fourth quarter in the second half of the season because they wanted to lose games. Now, if they got the 5th pick, those same people would have said, why did you tank? This was stupid. And you got to understand it, right? It's a risk that Will Dawkins has said multiple times we're taking. It's a calculated risk, but it's a risk at that. And it's just nice to see that when, the results match the process and everything goes the way it's supposed to go, it's a great day for the franchise and even better for the fans that have endured it.
So you look at our Wizards. They now have Anthony Davis and Trae Young. The Wizards now have a nucleus of 6 promising young players in Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley. The Wizards now have this number 1 overall pick. We have the likelihood of the NBA implementing anti-tanking rules starting next season, and we have the 2027 NBA draft not being viewed as a good draft. Considering all of that, is it safe to say that the Wizards' tank is over?
I think it's safe to say they called it the deconstruction phase. I mean, Anthony Gill is the last remaining player from when Dawkins and Winger took over. So it's safe to say they pretty much did deconstruct the roster, and Gill's a free agent. So, there's no telling whether he'll be back next year. So they've completely overhauled this team. And they did so by tanking, like you said, for the last 3 years, by trading a lot of good quality players for maybe some draft picks or some players that will not be good for a couple years, but they think might be good in a couple of years. And it's safe to say that part is done, right? They will not be strategically trying to do everything they can to not win games, right? Now, is the rebuild over? I don't think I can go that far because rebuilds take time. A rebuild isn't over the second you stop tanking. It's over the second you say, hey, we can contend and we're going to go all in and we're going to try to do this thing and win a title. I don't think that's next year, maybe the year after that, but they still have no playoff experience for the greater part of this roster. They still have a bunch of really young guys that need to develop and need to find their game and how they can become a winning player. And look, this team has lost 60 games 3 years in a row. They haven't played a meaningful game since the 2021 playoffs when they lost in 5 to the Sixers at the 8 seed. They probably shouldn't have even made it with that Russ and Brad team. They got to learn how to win. They got to develop talent. They got to make the right pick, obviously at 1 before they move forward. So I think I can say the tank is over. Like, this team will not try to lose games. They will not have, a scroll of the injury report every 2 days when you look at it online. But they're going to try to compete next year, and they have a really good roster to do so, and the number 1 pick certainly helps that.
The Wizards winning the draft lottery means what regarding Anthony Davis wanting to be on the Wizards next season?
I knew you would ask this, Al. I honestly, AD said in the offseason that, he wants to be years under contract, but he just needs them to show him something. He wants to compete for a title, or at least have a shot to win a title every single year in his career. He's 33, and some fans had a problem with that. I never did. He's going to come out here and say he wants to win a title, and he's open to doing that in Washington, but you got to show me something, man. You've lost 60 plus games 3 years in a row. Why is this the place for me to do that? Completely fair, completely warranted. I mean, I think going out and win the number 1 pick, that certainly should help, right? I'm sure AD knows what AJ Dabanza brings to the table or what Darren Peterson brings to the table. Like, these aren't just rookies that are going to come in here and maybe show some signs, but still are a ways away. Like, they're really professional, NBA-ready 19-year-old prospects that can come in and immediately help a team. Now, can they be the best player on a contending team or a championship team right now? Probably not when they're 19 or 20, but in a couple years, they can be. And I certainly think if Anthony Davis was looking for something to say, hey, I need to grasp onto this that tells me maybe I can win here, and that's why I should stay and try to work this thing out, that I think the number 1 pick is certainly a help. And maybe AD wants them to make some more moves. I don't think they should. I think you take the top pick. I think you draft maybe at 51-60. Maybe you extend Trae Young, and then maybe you extend Bilal Coulibaly. But apart from that, your roster is pretty set for what you want to do next year. And next year, I think, is an evaluation year. Whereas I think Anthony Davis wants it to be a contending year. And so maybe that'll be the last step in sort of saying, hey, AD, we're going to keep you. We're not going to trade you. But this team is good. We have the top pick in a really good draft. Why don't you just see it out? And if at the deadline you're really unhappy and you don't like it, maybe we can rebuild your value and we can move you, but at least work with us and see what we've got And I think the number one pick certainly helps. So I'd say it helps a little bit. It doesn't mean he's a lock to be a Wizard for next year and beyond. But if he's looking at something to hold on to, that certainly helps.
As deep as the 2026 NBA draft is believed to be, the conversation about who should be taken with the number one overall pick is only about two guys, right? AJ Debonsa of BYU and Darren Peterson of Kansas. I right now want the Wizards, if they stick and pick at one, to take Debonsa. I know that you feel the same way. How much of a conversation is this, Debonsa versus Peterson?
I think it's a real discussion. Like if Darren Peterson didn't have cramping issues and he played all the games and he was healthy, like this guy is one of the most gifted, most athletic players at the guard position I've ever seen. He's 6'6" so he gives that positional versatility, that size that Will Dawkins and Michael Winger like when it comes to young prospects. He's an incredible three-point shooter, and the percentages won't reflect that because he was in and out of the lineup, and he probably wasn't 100% for most of the season. But when he's on from three, he's got an incredible looking jumper, and he can space the floor for you. You can play five out pretty easily if he's your two guard, definitely spaces the floor, and a really good player to play alongside Trae Young. And I know they're not drafting for fit, but I think it's great that both of these guys fit there. And so I don't think it's just, AJ's the number one pick, because it's a real conversation, and they'll evaluate both of them. I think Darren's probably fully healthy now that he's had some time off, and you'll see who the better prospect is. I don't necessarily view Cam Boozer in that same light. I think he's a really good player. Just don't know if he has the same upside as a Peterson or as a Debonsa. But I'll tell you right now, I have AJ at 1. And if you just watch the highlight tape of him, like there's just unteachable moments where he'll like jump over a defender for a one-handed putback. And it just shows how freakish of an athlete he is. But it's also the professional scoring that he does. Like he'll get to the mid-range. He'll go up and rise up over any type of shot contest because he's 6'9", incredible wingspan, can shoot over anyone. But he's also poised enough and has the footwork to just pump fake and pivot or reverse pivot and get to the rim. And he has an incredible first step where he can just blow by a defender with a jab and he's at the rim. He can finish through contact. He can make some incredibly crafty layups. He can shoot the three. He was 33%, and obviously that's got to be better. But he showed an ability to at least space the floor. And in that tournament game, I encourage everyone to watch the BYU versus Texas NCAA tournament game. BYU lost, but he was their entire team. He was getting double and triple teamed, and he still nearly scored 40, an efficient 40, because he's that good. And so I think it's a conversation, and I don't think the Wizards are just going to say, hey, we're taking him, and we're not going to do any research. I have AJ at number 1. I don't have him as much over Peterson as maybe some people think. But the conversation is real, right? It's not like a Zion or a Cooper Flag or a Wemby year where it's, there's a number one guy. Everyone knows it. You might not say it, but we know it. This is a real conversation that you probably won't know the real answer to until they announce the pick in June.
We're talking Wizards, off them winning the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery, as we speak with Greg Finberg, staff editor for Bullets Forever and the host of the Wizards podcast. The due diligence that the Wizards do on Darren Peterson is so key because of this issue of the cramping. Ramona Shelburne, senior NBA writer for ESPN.com, she wrote a piece that came out this past Friday morning, headline, quote, Darren Peterson says high doses of creatine led to cramping, end quote. The piece included this, quote, Darren Peterson finally has an answer. One of the top prospects in this year's NBA draft spent much of his freshman season at Kansas trying to solve mysterious and sometimes debilitating cramping. But in an extended interview with ESPN this week, Peterson said that a new round of blood work and other tests after the college basketball season led his doctors to conclude that his use of high doses of creatine created the condition. In all, Peterson missed 11 games and asked to come out of several more throughout the season. By the end of the season, Peterson had figured out how to stay in the game, and he played more than 30 minutes in 8 of the Jayhawks' final 9 regular season games. But by that point, the scrutiny and criticism of the former Naismith High School Player of the Year had grown loud and uncomfortable, end quote. This cramping saga with Darren Peterson is odd. I do not think that it's fair to automatically jump to the conclusion that he's soft, but of course, that is something that you wonder. What do you think is the right way to view Peterson in terms of the cramping?
Yeah, there's a story about in The Athletic mid-season that was sort of detailing, like, look, he's trying to play. He had to go to the hospital for an IV because the cramping was so bad. And you have Ramona Shelburne that says it's due to creatine and overtaking creatine, which does cause you to cramp, I guess, if you're not drinking enough water to balance it out. And so, I'm inclined to believe that reporting because when you saw him in high school versus college, it's two completely different players. Like the explosiveness, the speed, the ability at which he dictates the pace of play, all of that just sort of wasn't as existent at Kansas as it was in high school. And that's typically not the case, right? You expected him to ascend in college. And even with that, he was still an incredible talent and had, when he was healthy, games where you sat back and said, yeah, he could easily be the number one overall pick. I mean, even when he played against the Bansa, Kansas, BYU, and Lawrence, he dominated that game. He had an emphatic dunk and he looked healthy. But then the next game you see him and he doesn't. And so I buy it. I understand that there's probably some health issues. Again, I wouldn't come out here and say he's not tough. He seemed like he was doing what he can, but you also have to balance the fact that this is a guy that is guaranteed to be a top 2 pick in this league. And if he gets hurt or if he furthers this injury or if he continues to play when he's hurt, he could affect his draft stock. Like those are all things you have to understand, right? It's like if you were presented with, multi guaranteed $1 million, if you just played hurt, you could lose a lot of that. Then that's another thing you got to consider as well. There was some talk about his agent also like dictating a lot of whether he played maybe and whether he didn't. So I'm inclined to think that he's a lot better than what he showed, and what he showed I think is worthy of a top 2 pick at that. And so I think he's a great talent. I think AJ is better, but I'm not too concerned about the toughness, about the injuries. I think he's incredibly talented, and we've seen it before. Like Kyrie barely played at Duke. He's one of the best players of all time. Like we see it a lot where guys, short end their season. Jalen Johnson left Duke pretty early. I don't know if he had an injury or he just felt he was NBA ready. He got a lot of hate for it, and now he's an all-star. So like it works out sometimes it doesn't. But I'm not too concerned. He's a top 3 prospect pretty easily for me.
The possibility of trading down. NBA insider Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, he wrote a piece for the Substack of NBA insider Mark Stein of the Stein Line on Substack. The piece came out on Sunday evening, included this regarding Monumental Basketball president Michael Winger. Quote, Winger told me directly that the Wizards will at least consider trading down. He insisted that this is not a savior moment for Washington, given that the franchise just traded for 2 former All-Stars in Trae Young and Anthony Davis on top of the slew of recent lottery picks it already has accumulated. He added that in accordance with Wizards general manager Will Dawkins' prospect evaluations, Washington will not rule out a move downward if Dawkins determines there are 2 or 3 players that the Wizards are eager to come away with, end quote. Should the Wizards be open to trading down from 1?
Yes. I mean, they should be open to everything. It would be dumb, I think, for Winger to come out here and say, we're not trading the number 1 pick. Do not call me. Like, you never know. Like, look at the Celtics, right? The last team to really trade back from the number 1. They traded to 3. They got Tatum, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, has already brought them a championship, and they got the better player, right? It's not always a guarantee that's the case. And I'm sure they had Tatum at 1 on their board. And they're like, well, we know that, I think it was Lonzo in that year, is going to go 2 to the Lakers. Why wouldn't we get another unprotected 1? We know they're going to take Fultz, then it's Lonzo. We're just going to take the guy we would have taken at 1, and we pick up another 1, right? And so it's smart to keep that optionality open, because there's the clear link between Utah, right, and AJ. He went to high school in Utah, college in Utah, was courtside for a lot of Jazz games this year. So I think the conversations will be different if like Memphis was at number 2, because I think 2 is the farthest you would probably go if you're Washington, because like it's Peterson or Debanza, in my opinion, for 1-2. So I think Washington's smart to keep their options open. And if you're talking to Utah, you hold all the cards, you hold all the leverage, because you're like, hey, we think AJ's the best player too. If you really want him, it starts with a number 2 pick. It starts with a future unprotected 1, and then maybe even more than that. And you try to negotiate down. And if I'm Washington, if I think AJ is that much better than Darren, I don't care what I'm offered. I'm taking him. I think he's good. And if you really view him as that number 1 option, I don't know how much I'm moved by just 1 extra unprotected 1. You have all your picks. You have a great team. You need to just get the best player. And so if they have AJ that much better than Darren, I'm probably not considering too much. I mean, I'm answering the calls, I'm listening, but I'm probably not going to do it for maybe just 1 unprotected 1. But if I have Darren on the same level as AJ and I'm Washington, or even if I have Darren higher, I'm going to come out here and tell the media and tell people to report that I think AJ is the best player, even though I don't. And so then you get Utah, who's a little desperate, wants AJ so bad. And then if you're Washington, you can say, all right, I'll trade back. Give me 2, give me an unprotected 1, and maybe something else. And I still get the guy I was going to take at 1. And so the way that you position, the smoke screens you see, that's what good front offices do. They don't give away much. No one knew Denny was going to get traded until it happened. No one knew AD was going to get traded to Washington until it happened. That's what this front office does well. They play their cards when they want. They do it strategically, and they want to keep something to the vest. They do. So I think it's smart to keep their options open. I think if you think Darren's a better player, trading down obviously is an incredible move to get another unprotected one and still get the player that you would have taken already at 1.
You look at some of the other well-regarded players in this draft: Cameron Boozer of Duke, Caleb Wilson of North Carolina, Darius Acuff Jr. of Arkansas, Keaton Wagler of Illinois. Is there anyone other than A.J. Debonsa and Darren Peterson who you like to where the Wizards should be willing to trade down to lower than 2, or is 2 the furthest that you'd go?
Yeah, I think 2's the furthest I would go. I think Boozer is a guy that I would probably have higher than Caleb Wilson, like barely, but I think he is going to be a better player than him. But I mean, you got one, right? How rare is it, right? The last time they did was when they took John Wall, and look how that worked out for him. You've waited all these years to just finally get the top pick in an incredible draft class, and to like move back 2 slots just for some unprotected ones. That what are you going to do with them? You're going to trade them for another veteran. I don't know. Maybe that works out. Maybe it doesn't. But how good the number 1 pick is. He's going to be 19 when you draft him. He's going to have a rookie deal for 4 years, and he could be the face of your franchise. And I only view the top 2 picks as those potential faces of the franchise. And there could be more. But in my opinion, you got the first pick. Either you like Debonsa as much and you take him, or you get a really good trade back offer for 2 because you think Debonsa and Peterson are on a similar level.
Do you think that the Wizards winning the draft lottery changes anything when it comes to the team retaining Brian Keefe as head coach?
It's a good question. I mean, they said at the end of season pressers that he was back for next year. I don't know. His contract isn't public, so I don't know if it's the last year or if there's another year for a 4th year on his contract. I mean, Brian Keefe, I came out and said I don't think he's done the best job, but look at the hand he was dealt. Look at how bad the rosters were. And look at the goal, right? Which was to get a player like Debonsa. So I thought he deserved a shot, right? And they gave it to him. And now he really has that year where he has the number 1 pick. He has Trey and AD. He has Sarr, George, Trey Johnson, and all the young players that are really good. You should be at least a playing team and maybe even a top 6 team in a pretty weak Eastern Conference. So if anything, it makes Brian Keefe's job easier. But I also think it makes it, maybe easier for them to move on from him because you are able to see with a competent team now, what can Brian Keefe get out of him? How good can this team be when they have a competent roster and him as the head coach? So I think it's great for him because he's a better talent, but I also think it makes it a little bit easier to evaluate him because the team is going to be pretty good next year.
It still is crazy that the Wizards won this draft lottery. When's the last time that you felt this good about the Wizards?
2017, 2016, 17, when John was playing at an all NBA level. Bradley Beal was really good. Otto Porter, probably one of the best years of his career. You had Gortat, you had Markieff Morris. You had a pretty competent bench, and you nearly made the conference final, right? You probably should have if you just win one of those games you were close with in Boston. And so I think that's the best I felt about the team because since then they've been pretty directionless, trying to build around Beal, trying to not build around Beal, whatever they were doing. They finally started the rebuild, and at times it looked bleak. Even the beginning of the season, remember how we talked about how they might lose their pick, and now they're sat there with the top pick, and they have Trae Young, they have Anthony Davis, and they look like a team that's actually ready to be, pretty competitive next season and beyond. And so I think since that Game 6 win with John Wall making that shot, and since the Game 7 loss, this is probably the most optimistic that I feel about this team.
I tell you, the poetry of Sunday afternoon was tremendous. The Wizards' first-round pick in the 2026 NBA draft is a reported top 8 protected pick back from the team trading John Wall and a first-round pick to the Houston Rockets for Russell Westbrook in December 2020. That it was Wall who represented the Wizards at the lottery reveal at the McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago on Sunday afternoon, and that the Wizards won the lottery. Just incredible.
It was great. I mean, no one better to represent the organization than him. Nice to see that they've sort of patched that relationship. But he's a legend. So it's really cool to see. He was pretty stoic on stage too. He had no reaction, cool as ever, like he was as a player. So really cool to see that he brought that pick home.
Greg Finberg, staff editor for Bullets Forever and the host of the Wizards podcast. Greg, thanks. All the best.
Thanks, Al. Always a pleasure to join you on the show.
All right. Exciting things are happening with our Wizards. If you would like to grow your business or practice, consider advertising on this podcast. Podcast advertising works and is very affordable. Put the power of the pod to work for you. Get your message out there to thousands of successful people in the Washington, D.C. area. We'd love to have you on board. Email us to see what we can do for you. The email address is thealgaldypodcast@yahoo.com. Well, the Baltimore Orioles begin this month of May by getting humiliated in getting swept in a 4-game series at the New York Yankees by a combined score of 39-10 over games May 1st through the 4th. But the O's on Monday evening begin a 3-game series against the Yankees at Oriole Park at Camden Yards with a win, a 3-2 win in a game in which the O's overcame a 2-0 7th-inning deficit by scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the 7th. The O's in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 19-23. The Yankees in this regular season now are 26-16, second best record in the American League and in the American League East, but the Yankees now have lost 4 consecutive games. Now, the O's on Monday evening got no hit for 6 innings, were not good offensively, just 3 runs, just 3 hits, which were a home run and 2 singles, 3 walks, 1 for 2 with runners in scoring position, 11 strikeouts. So the O's struggled against Yankees starting pitcher Ryan Weathers. He officially allowed 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings with 9 strikeouts, but Kobe Mayo came through with a big home run. He is the Orioles starting DH and number 6 batter, went 1 for 2 with a 3-run homer and a walk. Mayo in the Orioles' 3-run 7th had a 1-out 3-run homer to left field for a 3-2 Orioles lead. Kobe Mayo was getting a lot of playing time due to third baseman / second baseman Jordan Westburg being on the 60-day injured list. He has yet to play in this regular season due to a partial UCL tear in his right elbow, and Mayo has struggled. He, for this regular season, has an OPS of just .541, but he on Monday evening hit a clutch home run, and the Orioles pitching in this 3-2 win over the Yankees at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Monday evening was very good. The Orioles starting pitcher was Brandon Young. He allowed 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings with 5 strikeouts. He gave up just 3 hits, which were a home run, a double, and a single. Issued 3 walks through 97 pitches, 54 strikes, 43 balls. So Young in the top of the 3rd gave up a 1-out opposite field 2-run homer by Ben Rice to left center field for a 2-0 Yankees lead, but Young otherwise pitched well, and 3 Orioles relievers combined for 3 2/3 scoreless innings. Dietrich Enns tossed 1 2/3 scoreless innings. Rico Garcia tossed a perfect top of the 8th with 2 swinging strikeouts despite facing the Yankees' numbers 2 through 4 batters in Ben Rice, Aaron Judge, and Cody Bellinger, and Anthony Nunez tossed a scoreless top of the 9th for the save. Man, Rico Garcia has been so good. He now for this regular season has these stats: 20 games, 19 innings, ERA of 0.47, whip of 0.42, strikeouts per 9 innings of 10.42. And I also want to note this. The O's on Monday evening played one of their best defensive games of this regular season, in which the defense has been a problem, but the defense was good for a second consecutive game. Also was good in the 2-1 win over the Athletics at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Sunday afternoon. Some roster moves by the O's. They on Monday evening announced having selected the contract of relief pitcher Josh Walker from AAA Norfolk, announced having option pitcher Trey Gibson to AAA Norfolk, and announced having transferred outfielder Heston Kjerstad to the 60-day injured list. He had been on the 10-day injured list since March 25th, retroactive to March 22nd due to a right hamstring strain. Game 2 for the O's against the Yankees at Oriole Park at Camden Yards Tuesday evening at 6:35. The O's have not yet announced a probable starting pitcher for this game. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Wednesday's show, episode 1324, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Wednesday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats are at the Cincinnati Reds Tuesday evening at 6:40 for Game 1 of a 3-game series. The O's are home to the New York Yankees Tuesday evening at 6:35 for Game 2 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
With Morris, Wall, Beal, and Gortat. Porter can't find anybody. He gives it to Wall. Working against Bradley for 3. John Wall! What a shot!
Now you talk about a pressure shot. That was it.